on my device. So, but we're live. So
We're
yay!
live.
Welcome everybody. Welcome in. Here we
Oh,
are.
and Jamie, I have to let you know, I sent you a note in a bit of a panic going, what's the topic today? And of course I realized all I needed to do was go to LinkedIn and I could see the topic.
It's also inside of where we're speaking now on our stage. So it's in there as well. But
yes,
yeah, cool.
Yes.
So our topic is no more almost, how to escape the loop that's keeping people stuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Such a powerful topic, and so important. I want to take a moment. Sorry, I'm playing with my screens here, and of course I always lose what I'm doing.
Oh, and let me mention too, we have a little sound engineer issue. We have lawnmowers going in the background. So if you're hearing that, just bear with us.
My apologies.
I have
it's funny. I just mentioned just before we went live that it kind of sounds like a harmonic thing. Like I was thinking it was backfeed or feedback. Sorry. But also, I do a lot of meditation and I do a lot of guided meditation. So to me, I want to let everybody know, no, we're not trying to subliminally brainwash you with harmonics in the background. It's just a lawnmower.
So, I found it interesting, and I know Mark and Jamie, you subscribe to the universe as well, right? Those emails. I don't know if you read today, so I thought it was very appropriate for what we were going to talk about today. And so, lawnmower's right there. Give me one moment.
Yeah.
He's going the other way. It was, where you are is never who you are. You're always more. And so I felt it appropriate for kind of what we were talking about. We get stuck, right? And we think that that's all there is, but there is more. And we've got what it takes to get over that finish line, right?
Yes.
Feeling like you're in a marathon and you're at that last mile and you just don't have it in you, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to bow out, right? But whatever that, and I don't run marathons, by the way, let's just be clear. So the metaphor is not a personal one, but it's like something kicks in and goes, I got this, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think we would like to train ourselves to say when we get there. It's like, all right, we're 80% there. There's only 20% more. I got this.
Yeah.
Dig in, right?
Yeah. I like that. Dig in. There's more in the tank, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
I did see that quote and I loved it. And I'm glad that you highlighted that here. Yes.
Yeah. Beth, and by the way, don't worry about the lawnmower. Just sounds like it does literally just sound like a little harmonic distortion in the background. Your voice is fine. I'm certain anybody jumping on the call or joining us live will be able to hear your voice just fine. It's probably, I'm sure it sounds a lot louder to you. I know it does that with me. Like I'm going, oh, but you're fine. But it's I think that idea too, what comes up for me when you said that too, is that with that quote from the message from the universe, by the way, a little plug for them. There's and what's it called again?
It's tut.com, TUT.com.
Yeah. And it's
Notes from the universe.
Notes from the universe. So every day you get a little note and it's very inspiring. And often, I find, just like you, Beth, it'll be just perfectly timed for whatever is happening that day. So there's real serendipity. Jamie and I will often send each other going, wow, did you read this one this morning? And so we highly recommend it. There's a little plug for, and I can't remember the fellow that runs it, but tut.com.
I don't remember his name, but tut.com. You sign up for their email, and every day you'll get just a very inspiring email. I have my son, he's 20, and I have him signed up for it too. It's just a nice way to frame up your day. And
they're typically very short, just one-liners, but sometimes they're a paragraph or two. But they never take any more than seconds really to read. So anyhow, enough of a plug about that. But I want to get back to what you were saying, Beth, is what sparked for me when you brought that up and when you were speaking to that point was that word more, and that idea that if we don't move, if we don't take action, then we're not able to tap into the more, right? Like if you're standing still, then whatever's left in the tank is just sitting in the tank.
Yeah.
So we're not able to draw upon that more, what's in the tank, unless we choose to run, unless we choose to take that next step. But if we just stop, in the run, and we're standing there on the road and we're not moving, well, how do we know? How do we know how much more we've got in us? And I think that's a great kind of segue as well, and it blends in well with the topic, right? It's no more almost. How to escape that loop? Well, one of the easiest ways is by doing something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that almost thing too, we always talk about this, Mark and Beth, is that there's no done. There is no done in business. So, activity is the key. But having said that, you don't want to be focusing on the wrong activities either. Like you could be spinning your wheels and wasting time and feeling like you're getting traction and you're not. And that's frustrating too, is like knowing what are the actions I need to be taking in order to move myself forward and not feeling so stuck. So
yes.
So that's always a challenge and a balance. Yeah.
True. Back to Beth's metaphor of the marathon is you could be standing still, stretching and thinking, well, this is going to help me win the race. But if the race is on and you're at mile marker 10 and you're just stopping and you're stretching, you're really, how much closer are you getting to your goal? You're not. So that's a really good point, Jamie.
Thinking that activity is actually making progress. Right. So you have to kind of measure those things. We talk about that, measuring your progress, knowing where you are on that spectrum, knowing that what you're doing is resulting in what you want it to result in. And so not just spinning your wheels just to be busy and feel, and, you have that false sense of like, well, I'm doing something, and something is better than nothing for sure. But it's kind of figuring out. Yeah, Beth.
Yeah, and it depends on what that something is, to your point of the priorities. Yes. The other thing is, and I think, Mark, you can relate to me on this, is the thing that stops me at times is that perfectionism.
Yes.
Right. And I have to remind myself, progress, not perfection.
Yes.
And it's progress that I want to make. And it's, not having to dot every I, cross every T, because it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. Things are ever changing. And so we kind of have to get out of our head about that. Is the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
It's right. 80-20, is that good enough?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
For many, it's probably better than good still, right?
Yes.
And we get ourselves caught in wanting it to be pretty and this and that. And, we find things to just get hung up on. And I think that goes to the also being afraid, right?
There's fear underlying that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what you were just, that's one of those examples of the loop that keeps you stuck, the perfectionist loop. So, and as you said, if you can get in and I think that's what you just brought up there, Beth, is a really important strategy. So to listen to is to say 80% is enough. So in my mind, if I can work towards 80% and then release, let it go. Some people call it shipping. If I can ship the product at 80%, that's what I need to focus on, not 100%, because you never get to 100%. That's perfection. So 80% done, out the door.
Yeah. And I think in this day and age, one of the other things that gets us caught up in the loop is visibility, right? Oh no, I'm going to be seen.
Yeah.
And what's somebody going to think or say?
Yeah. Fear of judgment.
That fear, like you were talking about. Yeah.
Right. The fear can be, it's not perfect, but then there's that fear of, who's going to think that this is crazy?
Yeah.
You know, I've had, people in my family kind of wonder why I decided to become a coach and do my own business. And, I'm like, 'cause it's what drives me.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't make sense to them, but shedding that, like, what do they think? It took a while to really, not that I don't care, because I do care what my family thinks.
Of course.
However, it's not going to stop me, right, from doing what I want.
And it just tells you they're not your target market.
Right.
Right? It's not, you're not doing it for them.
Yeah.
So that's okay. It only has to resonate with the people that it needs to resonate with. It reminds me of Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor. Most people would know, tremendous, motivational speaker, and just did a lot of great stuff. And I'm trying to remember how he put it. He used to say, don't worry about what people think of you. Or no, don't worry about what people think. They don't. And I used to laugh whenever, and he had just such a clever way of putting it. And,
or it's none of my business what other people think about me.
Well, that's another one. Yeah, it's none of my business what other people think. Yeah.
And it's not that they are, let me just be clear that my family has been supportive, but there was that kind of, but initially, going from secure corporate, right?
Yeah.
And going out on my own, like, what? Ooh, don't you need healthcare? I can get healthcare, right? Yeah. It's just, and it's not that I didn't think of those things. So they have been supportive, but there were a few little like, huh?
Yeah. Well, let's face it, it's that entrepreneurial journey, right? Is that we're people who have that calling to step out on their own. We're in a pretty small, a lot of people might think that it's huge and that there's tons, but the reality is it's not. It's a pretty small bubble of people that are actually able to adopt that mindset and that belief. And therefore it's kind of the what's the expression, trying to jam a square peg in a round hole, is that most people, are over here on the square peg side of things thinking, got to get a job, got to have security, the myth of security, right? You got to work for the man, in order to take, and that you're being irresponsible, if you're an entrepreneur. But somebody's got to take the lead. Yep. Somebody's got to step into this role. Beth, I wanted to, something reminded me that you said earlier, and I know we had this in a conversation. You had brought this up last week on one of our client implementation calls. So one of our closed calls that Beth spoke up bravely about. And I love how you talked about it. And I think this really speaks to the point of how to escape the loop, this stuck loop. And you brought up, I think you said 3 things every morning when I start my day. And maybe you could share that, because I really appreciated those. Yeah,
they're what's going to ring the till, right? How am I going to connect? And the last one is, how am I showing up? The visibility.
Beautiful.
Right? How is somebody going to, see me? Yeah. So those are the 3 things. And, today, this is my visibility.
Yes.
Right? Part of my connecting and my till, which is kind of the same, is I reached out to some folks on LinkedIn to connect. They're part of my target audience. And the other thing, to help in all of it is I'm interviewing people to be website managers. So I've done all 3 of those. So now almost anything that I do for the second half of the day is a bonus.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love
that clarity and that purpose, that it's not just a random long. I think where a lot of people get stuck in loops is they have these huge to-do lists. And then they never feel like they're accomplishing anything. And obviously our mind always gravitates towards what's easy, what's painless, what can I do to escape any fears that I've got hidden. And then they get in this loop of doing things over and over and over again that aren't getting them any farther forward. But that simple exercise that you do every morning
Yeah.
to lay out those 3 focused elements is beautiful. And it's what that intention, right? There's a word, setting the intention for the day.
Setting the intention. The other thing, and another coach friend of mine had shared those with me. And the other thing that she shared with me is creating a bingo card, right? So as things get highlighted is what's done for this week. You can see some, but it kind of makes it fun, right? These are the things that I really want to accomplish this week. And, it's a visual, it's different than a list. There are different things like that. So I just started doing that, and that's helpful. I've got my highlighter here.
I love that. I think I need to steal that. Would that be okay?
I know.
You know what, I know Jamie's excited about this, but I just want to put a word to it. We've heard a lot about this, over the last year. So this idea of gamifying, right? Everything's getting gamified.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant example of a practical use of gamifying the experience. I love it. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. Gamify your day, turn it into a bingo game. Yeah.
That's kind of what I do. And I love that bingo card thing. I use, and again, I'm going to kind of plug an external site, but I use Todoist. So it's to-do list, but without the L, todoist.com. And what I love about it, you both have talked about it. You can prioritize by color. So red, and then orange, and then blue, and then white. And that's how I structure my day. And you can structure it by project. You can structure it by priority, and you can create schedulable tasks out of emails. So if I got an email from, let's say, Beth, and I want to deal with it, I shoot that right over. I'm not trying to plug that. I just want to say, I love all these tools that are helpful for staying on task. And one thing I just wrote down to what you said is this is me speaking about my own experience of and Mark will appreciate this, of going, okay, that's a weakness of mine, because my weakness is just because it's on the list, I feel like I'm obligated to do it.
Yeah.
And right. And that's a really hard stretch for me to go, no, you don't have to do that today. That could be snoozed. That could be removed. It's kind of like Amazon shopping. It's like you put stuff, Mark and I talked about this last week, you put stuff in your cart and you think you've got to have it. So you stick it there and you let it sit for a few days and you go back to it and you go, I don't really need that. And so I have to kind of rein myself in and say, okay, just the things that are in red that have to get done. And I have them on a daily loop, and I'll just check them off and go, well, I'll get that done tomorrow. So having that, just because you have it on the list doesn't mean you got to do it.
Well, and that, to tie, yes, absolutely. And those are the things that you think of, and then you start to go and act on distractors, right?
Yes.
And we talked about this last week as well, Mark, on the implementation call. I have my own Amazon cart wish list over here that, what are things that I need to do that aren't the priority. Being a CEO is my priority, right? My business, right? And so those 3 things that I start my day with are there. So I know I have spent CEO time. But over here is what I call it a parking lot. And I've got a personal sheet and I've got a business sheet, right? There. And then as I look at them, I'm like, well, is that still important? Yeah. Right. And if it's not, I'll cross it off. Or as I get it done, I check it off. Right. And it's a visual.
Yeah.
Because I do have that long list, but actually everything on there is not on this list.
Yeah. It didn't make it to your bingo card for the day. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the bingo card. I want to add to this, a little spin on this, is the first time I heard it was a story, and it was Warren, a young man or whatever coming up to Warren Buffett, having a conversation with him and saying, how do you succeed? I've got so many goals. And it actually is, Buffett calls it, I think it's 25, or somebody put a coin phrase to it, called it the 25-5 rule. James Clear, here's another plug, Atomic Habits, if you've ever read that book, brilliant book. But the premise behind the story and the way Buffett looks at it is he says, okay, make your list of 25 things, right? Write down 25 of the most important things to you, your goals. This is your to-do list. And then he says, okay. And the story is that this young man comes to him and he gets him to write out the 25. You're smiling, Beth, so you probably heard the story. And then he says to him, okay, I want you to take the top 5 goals on there, the most important goals. And the young man goes, okay, that's great. I'm prioritizing. These are my top 5, and these are my next 5, and these are my next 5. And he goes, no. He said, that's all you've got. I want you to take the other 20 and rip them up. And under no circumstances are you to think about them or work on them or even allow them into your life again. You have to remove the distraction so that you can stay focused on what's really important. And I love that story because it really, and it, you can do little tricks with yourself. You could say, okay, if I were to die tomorrow, if the internet and all electronics were to crash at midnight tonight, what would be those 5 things that I would do on this list above all the rest? And then you just throw the rest away. Don't even write them down. And that's his recommendation too. Don't go, okay, these are my 5 priorities, and then these are my next 5 and my next 5. No. The idea is you delete all of that from your consciousness and your thinking. So you don't even write it down. So let's say you got a whiteboard. This would be a great exercise. So you write down on the whiteboard all 25, and then you kind of go, okay, what are the 5? And then you just literally take your dry eraser and erase all the rest. So there's only 5 remaining.
So
that's how you get rich. That's how you become successful, is that ultimate focus, right?
So I've got 2 things about that. One, do you get to, when you erase one, do you get to add one? So there's 5?
Well, I suppose so. I mean, the idea is that these are huge goals, right? They're big goals.
So got it. So
you might not even need to add one because, if your goal, let's say, I don't know, your goal is to be physically fit and weigh a certain weight. It's a big goal for you and it's going to take a lot of work. Like, that's a really important top level goal. Once you reach that, then you don't need to replace it. You can kind of go, I'm fit and healthy and I'm at the ideal weight that I want to be at. Now I can apply even more energy to the 4 remaining things. So I think the idea behind it is that if that were the case, then probably if you were removing one of those 5 and you felt compelled to replace it, then that probably wasn't a big enough goal.
Got it. So it's like the big hairy goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So my second thing, and because I'd be remiss as a coach who helps people with work-life balance, in those 5, personal needs to be in there, right? This is not just work, business goals.
Definitely.
Right? So people, or you're going to have no balance. So I'd be remiss as,
I agree completely. Yeah, because if those 5 are all singularly about one thing, then you're out of balance and you're not going to feel fulfilled and you're not going to get, and you're probably going to lose energy on those 5 because you're not being fulfilled in those other areas of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of the wheel of life, right?
Yes.
The mental, emotional, the business, the family, all of those things that come into your wheel of life, I think, need to be in those BHAGs.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we do our business so that we can have the life that we want. Otherwise, why would we do it?
Yeah.
And I also want to share, Mark, I'm sure you won't mind me sharing our state signal.
Yeah.
So another idea that Mark and I have put into play. Now, Mark and I are business partners, for those of you who don't know. So we check in every single morning. We have a Slack channel and we have one called, I don't know why we called it State Signal, but maybe you can speak to that. But I'll just give a couple things. And so this is an idea for those of you who maybe don't have a business partner, but maybe you have a friend in your life that you text with every morning. And maybe you can both hold each other kind of, I don't want to say accountable, but just kind of voice what your intention, be intentional about your life or your business, whatever. So I'm going to read this from our Slack channel. I'm not going to read what you put, but basically it's an outline of what I did for me this morning. how I started my day. What, like, I know Mark wants me to focus on taking better care of me, mentally, physically, all of that. So we check in with each other. Did you do something physical? Like that. So what I did for me in the morning, what is your energy level for the day on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you feeling mentally, physically? Top priority for the day. Blockers. Is there anything blocking you from getting that done? And then ask, is there anything that you need because we're partners, we'll say, is there anything that I need to ask of you that I'm relying on you to get back to me on? So some variation of that in your personal life or your business. But again, many of you are probably solopreneurs, but who in your life can you do that with, that you could say, I want to check in every morning. I know I have a circle of friends that every morning we go, good morning, and that's about it. And then we might share a little bit about our day. But if you could have some kind of structure to that, Mark and I do, even when I was on vacation, I didn't do it. When you were on vacation, you didn't do it. And that's fine. But I continued to do it even though he was on vacation, and he did it when I was away on vacation. So just having that accountability to keep it rolling. Yes.
Yeah. I think it also, the other thing it does too, Jamie, is you don't even need somebody, because you can be that person for yourself. It's kind of like putting it out there, like the universe idea is, which we kind of started this call on, the idea of notes in the universe. But, if you look on those things, those key points for your day, and you start, it's that intention, right? What's my intention for the day? So you can even ask those questions of yourself. You can start your day and go, wait a minute, what did I do for me? What did I do for me today? And therefore, if I haven't done anything yet, what am I going to do for me?
Yes.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. You can't live your purpose. And, that idea of, I also like the blocker, the blockers. What's blocking me? What am I thinking? What's holding me back? What happened yesterday? What is there that's in my way? What could be a blocker that could be a problem that I could focus on to solve, to get out of my way? And that ask idea too, in our case, like Jamie said, Jamie can ask of me, I can ask of her. But you could even do that in terms of saying, who do I need to ask? Where is this outside of my wheelhouse that I need to ask for help? And it could be anything. It could be, I need to ask, this doesn't apply to us, obviously, but I need to ask my partner to take care of the kids or to prepare dinner tonight, because I've got to finish this project. So what is that ask? And that will often formulate who you need to ask it of. So it's a cool thing. And I think in answer to your question, Jamie, about the state where that came up with, is the idea that we're all in states. We're in a state right now. We're all in a mental and emotional state. We're vibrating at a certain frequency, and all of this comes into it. So our energy, we're in that energetic state. And that's the idea of the state signal. What's the state signal that I'm in today? And where do I choose to be? And I think that's what's really cool about taking just a moment to write out those things forces us to often change our state of thinking.
Yeah, like frustration
for the day.
Like, I know sometimes we express frustration with things. I know this morning you did, and
right,
so just some frustration. Just got to get it out. Like,
you got to get it out. Yeah,
yourself. Yeah.
So,
I like that.
It's it's cool. And if you I want to circle back a little bit to the Warren Buffett thing, the 25-5 or the 5-25 rule is, I'm a big believer in this too, is we have to trust in this amazing thing between our ears, the most powerful thing we have available to us, our brain. And then I'll go a little woohoo on you. We also have to trust in the universe. We have to trust in what's going on around us and the energy. So when we choose those 5, the big fear is, oh my God, I'm going to lose the rest of those. That's why I got to write them down. I'm going to forget them.
Yeah.
You know what? That's okay, because they'll come back to you. And it's either your subconscious, your brain, yourself. And if that's what your belief is that it's all in the brain, great. But your brain will bring up, that number 21 if it needs to come out later at some point in time. So you don't really need to stress about it. You can just let it go. And I think that's one of those fear things that you brought up earlier about that idea of what's the fear. The fear is, if I don't write this down, if I don't have this on my list, I'm going to forget it. And therefore I'm going to not be as successful as I want to be, or I'm going to lose, or something's going to happen. If we just let go and release that fear and trust in ourselves, that it'll come to us if we need it. If that's important, it'll come to us. Kind of like the phone call, right? Like, I remember years ago, this would have been dating myself, pre-cell phone days. And I remember being with someone, it was a neighbor, and she was in the habit of never answering the phone if you were visiting with her. And I know you probably heard, everybody's probably going, oh, I knew somebody like that, or I've heard that story, but this is a real story. And it was the first time I'd experienced it. And she just let the phone ring. And I was like, wow, I don't think I said anything at that moment in time, but it occurred to me afterwards that she just was of this mind that, hey, if it's important, they'll call back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if that idea is important, it'll call back.
Yeah.
The universe will call back.
Yeah.
God will call back. My right brain will call back, whatever you want to label it, doesn't matter, but just have the trust and the faith that it'll be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Beth, you gave a little bit of a plug about what you do. We want to give you the stage for a moment and just share with anybody out there what you do, who you do it for, and I will be happy to post a link inside the chat, in the comment section, to get people over to your profile or wherever you want them to go. I'm turning it over to you for a minute.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I help people with what I refer to as life-work balance. Most people refer to it as work-life balance. But I help you to be more fully aligned and live a more fulfilling life without sacrifice and guilt, which is not always easy. Mostly I work with women who are dealing with the children, the aging parents, and that kind of thing. Even those who are empty nesting and now wondering what. So that's what I love to do. And, I can be reached at withinyoucoaching.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn as Beth Allison. And I'm also on Facebook. So find me, let's have a conversation and see what we can do.
Yeah, I posted your LinkedIn profile, and I'm just going to grab your website here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're obviously on different platforms right now. I think we're broadcasting on YouTube,
LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook.
So that's on all of them. Go check her out. See if she's one of your peeps, and if she resonates with you, then start a conversation.
Yeah, and even if you're looking for a collaboration partner, right? If you think something we could collaborate on, I'm always open for those as well. So
great.
Awesome.
Great.
And Mark, we'll do a shameless plug for our workshop coming up.
Yes, for sure.
Scrolling across the bottom, but I will also in the comments section. So you plug away and I'll grab the link for that.
Okay. So you'll see scrolling is our 5-day map, we call it, which is our workshop for people like Beth who are coming into this space, or maybe have been in this space for a while, of an entrepreneurial adventure of being a coach. And many people that come into this space have that calling, have the amazing skills to be able to serve and help people. But what's missing is the business side of things. So that's what we do in the 5-day map. It's totally free. It's our gift. We really want to help people, and coaches in particular, to realize that when they start to look at their practice and what they do through the lens of building a business, things start to work better and they start to get better outcomes. And that's what we talk about in the 5-day map. We go through different topics each day, and we encourage you to participate. Therefore, we give some exercises each day that will help you refine your knowledge and your skill of doing business and building a business, as opposed to creating a job for yourself. And that's kind of one of the underlying themes of what we do, is we see most people that are on this journey that experience pain or frustration is because they're continually looking at the work as creating a job for themselves. So we try and put a totally different spin and lens on that. Say, no, we want to let go of that idea of creating a job for ourselves and instead to design a business that works. And that's what the 5-day map is all about.
And special distinction there. We call it a workshop because it is a workshop. You're going to do some work. It's not a webinar. It's not where you just sit and watch a presentation and that's it. You're going to get some specific homework.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's well worth your time to do it, as it did in those 5 days when I did that with Jamie and Mark. It definitely had a mind shift for me, and has made an impact. So
thank you.
Thank you for your plug.
That's great. And thank you, Lamaris.
Yeah.
Just dropped a comment in here too from LinkedIn. And said, thanks for that. Personal goals are so important. They're so critically important, Lamaris. So definitely that idea that Beth is bringing up, this idea of balance, is if we think about the wheel of life. And I remember being introduced to that from an early age, in my 20s, probably, in business. And that concept, and I remember I kind of blended some different philosophies and beliefs around it, but I remember Stephen Covey, having that idea too, and some of my mentors. But, when we build a life around a job, when we try and create a job for ourselves, what happens when we lose the job? The wheel collapses. And instead, this idea that Beth works so well on, and we do bring it up a little bit in MAP as well, is this idea of, if we instead design a life and then find the career or the profession that fits into that, now all of a sudden the wheel can turn and roll. And even if one of those, spokes, if you will, gets bent or broken, the wheel can still roll. Even if the tire loses a little air, it can still roll. But if we build our life around that hub, something in the hub, then that's when things can collapse for us. So very cool. So I didn't mean to go too long or to extend that, Jamie, but I just thought that was that Lamaris brought up a really good point, and I thought that fit very well into also highlighting how Beth works so much on that and helps people with that idea of balance.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great. Lamaris, thank you for your extra comment. She said, thank you all for holding the space.
Yes, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Great. Well, we want to keep it tight, so we'll wrap up here, and we'll see you all next week with a new topic.
The workshop. By the way, our next workshop, we run it about every 1 or 2 months. I can't say we're on a set schedule, but it starts on Monday. So the link is in scrolling there. Sign up, join us, come on and play in the sandbox with us. We don't bite. And we guarantee you're going to, like Beth, you're going to come away with some great ideas that will shift your mind and your state. And we'll leave it on that state signal. We're going to change the signal.
And we're going to take you from no more almost. We're going to take you away from that almost loop.
Yes. We're going to break those loops for sure. Yes.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Beth. Such a pleasure to be with you.
It was great. Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.